What's up, wild animals? I'm Melanie Vesey, and welcome to another Promotional Rescue talk show where I talk with people about how they promote themselves without feeling gross. I'm a stand-up comedian, I'm an actress, I'm a filmmaker. If you want to know more about any of my comedy, my special, my movies, what have you, you can watch all that stuff at melanievesey.com. But I'm also a promotions consultant with my own company called Promotional Rescue, where I teach people how to promote themselves without feeling gross, like I said earlier. And you can get all that information, my services, what I do, when my workshops are, all of that good stuff over at promotionalrescue.com. But this is how the show works. All this information that you're going to be watching right now is going to be on my social media. You're also going to be watching this over on Comedy Hub, whom I love. Make sure to subscribe to them, donate, whatever, follow, favorite, love them. But over on my Patreon, I'm going to be talking with my guests about the best and the worst thing that's ever happened to them promoting online. And that is a juicy conversation. On today's show, I have the incredible Tristan Taormino, who has her own podcast called Sex Out Loud Podcast. She is a sex educator and writer. She is incredible promotions machine. And what we're going to be talking about is how she grew her list from just starting with 25 people to over 8,000, which is incredible. It's been a journey, and she talks specifically about how to do that. Then over on my Patreon, she's going to tell the story about the first time she was on Howard Stern. The story is hilarious and death-defying and so scary because it was her first ever interview. And that is a conversation that you definitely should be hearing. You can get all of that. You can listen to the full episode. You can watch it. You can listen to it over on my Patreon, patreon.com/Melanie Vesey. But now let's jump right into Tristan Taormino. Hey, Tristan. Welcome. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. We had such a fantastic chat on when I did your podcast, Sex Out Loud. And it's funny because I did talk about my business a little bit on your podcast, and we did delve into a little bit of some of what you learned in your promotional journey in general. And I just wanted to, of course, have you on and take a little bit of a deeper dive in that because I really do want to hear about the stuff that you've learned. So in quick, is there any way that you can maybe talk about your promotional journey? Like, have you always been cool with it, or have you struggled? I don't know. What do you think?
Right. Well, I think that my promotional journey started on paper, which is totally dating me, which is that the way to promote things back in the old days, in the 90s, in New York City, was to make flyers. And to get those flyers, and at the beginning, it's just like you're fucking someone at Kinko's so that you can get the flyers made after hours for free.
Oh, kids, I hope you're writing this down.
And then you have to get flyers in the hands of so many people, right? So you have to go to a lot of events. You have to go to clubs, you have to go to bars, you have to go to readings, you have to go to like the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, and you have to like hand out those flyers and tell everyone about it because this is before the internet and, before social media. So it was kind of an on the ground sort of soldier thing that you had to do.
Yeah.
Also around that time, we did have email. Around that time, I actually started my own newsletter. So I think my first newsletter was in like 1995. And I probably emailed like 25 people. And I basically talked about my adventures, being a sex educator, being a writer, traveling. And I would just write these little stories and then promote whatever was coming up. And I would send it to, the 25 people whose email addresses I had. And then, that has grown, just so you know, into over 8,000 people. So my email list and newsletter is 8,000 people. But from the very beginning, I knew that whenever I met someone at an event, I needed to capture their information. It was like a mantra for me. You've met this person, they have a vague interest in you because they showed up to this thing or they bought your book. Get a way to contact them again. Right? Because once they walk out of this door, you're never going to see them again. They're not going to be able to follow me on social media. So I had to do like all of that legwork. And I guess I was kind of making it up as I went along. Yeah, I don't
like, what did that look like? You probably had a clipboard, like, so when somebody saw you,
yes,
clipboard, there was at the handwritten at the top, name,
yes,
email, and then like, please write clearly, right? Because everyone has garbage handwriting. And you're like, is that an I? Is that an L? What is that? Is that a 6? Is that a 9?
And you hand enter it. You know, like first I was hand entering it into probably like a Yahoo like group message or something, BCCing people. Obviously now I have like a database and a, you know, mail server and all that shit. But
right.
But at the time, yeah, I was just hand entering them.
Yeah.
But then, you know, these became like my core fans, right? These became people I can talk to directly. And this was before we had a lot of other outlets for promotion.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm taping up posters on telephone poles on the streets of New York, and I'm making a list. I
love this. I love this so much. And it also like, I just also feel like too, and I talked about this in my last episode, with that everyone starts at 0. And I sometimes feel like when people come to me and I go, oh, well, do you have a mailing list? And like, well, there's not a lot of people on it. And I'm like, who cares? Like, you started with 25 people and you have to start somewhere. And my business is very much word of mouth. I'm always going to be friends and family first. Those people are going to tell people. And now I'm to the point where, yes, complete strangers contact me.
Right.
But what carried my business probably for the first 4 years was someone worked with me, had a great experience, told somebody. And it was all because I came up in conversation, also to staying top of mind with social media, and then kind of those two worlds kind of coming together. So I really can't speak enough to people, like, don't be afraid of low numbers. They are there to carry you and to keep on growing and capture that information as it happens. And if it feels good to you to do that stuff, right? To just keep it going. And then, so now you've got this newsletter with 8,000.
Well, okay. So we're starting in the middle, or should we fast forward to the empire? I mean,
please do it. I mean, talk about the like, ta-da, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, again, I feel like, first of all, when I became a sex educator in the 90s, like there was no such job. No one was making money doing it. There weren't sex columns in like college newspapers. Like that just wasn't a thing. So I feel like I made up my job, and I had to make up promotional tools for how to promote it. But I think like one of my biggest challenges came when I wrote my very first book, which was The Ultimate Guide to Anal Sex for Women. And I was super, it was 1998. This was not a blasé conversation happening on Teen Vogue.
Yes.
Trust me on that.
Yes.
And so when the book came out, I faced a lot of challenges. First of all, like the salespeople for the book were like, I don't even want to like say this name of this title in a meeting. And it's 1998. And I was in a meeting once where people said, we don't even know if this buying books online thing is even going to take off. Well,
meanwhile, it started the biggest empire, which is Amazon, you know.
Yes, but the thing is, when I write sex books, this is not something that Barnes and Noble, and I mean Barnes and Noble in the fucking East Village.
Yeah, exactly.
Is going to blow up the cover and put it in the window and say, Tristan joins us for an evening at 7:30. Wine, cheese, and talk of anal sex. Like, there's no way. There's no way. So all of a sudden I was like, I have this book. I want people to know about this book. How the fuck am I going to do that? Right. So I decided to start teaching a workshop on it. I'd never taught a sex workshop, but I like did all this research and put all this energy into this book. And I loved the topic. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go wherever they'll take me. Community center, little sex shop, little radical anarchist bookstore, wherever they'll have me.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach a class on anal sex. And maybe some of the people who come to that class will buy my book. And that kind of started my career, really. It really did. It was like, I got up in front of a room full of people. I started talking about something really taboo.
Yeah.
They were all strangers. I started fielding their questions, and I was like, oh, this is what I was meant to do with my life. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, this is it. This is my jam. Yep. No fear, no nervousness, just doing it.
It's so amazing that you figured that out, and you really were kind of like, even though there were obstacles, right, to getting this done, you were totally like, well, how can I find a way, in the way that like water finds its way? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm just going to find this one crack on how to figure this out. So you had this in-person component to it, which is the workshops, which I can't stress to anybody enough, that if you know something about anything, and you don't have to be a genius at this stuff, you just have to know more than your particular audience, right?
Yes.
How can you bring this to somebody and teach them how to do it? And it is a fantastic way to earn, right?
Yeah,
it is
absolutely. Passive income.
Oh my God. And
I mean, yeah. And now with the internet, I mean, you don't need a venue. You don't need to pay for space. Like literally, you record it, you put it up online in the middle of the night, someone orders it, and then you give them the link and boom.
It's wonderful. It is really, really amazing. And it's so funny that you brought up about the, putting the flyers up on telephone poles. So when I first started doing comedy 17 years ago, we had the internet, but it was before Facebook and it was before all that stuff. So I literally had to have like a photo shoot on film with the co-hosts, pictures of us, right? Printed it out on posters. I would drive around in my Trans Am and I would think about the intersections where people would sit the longest. So if you live in Silver Lake, you know that there's that intersection over by the Gelsons over there. So I had a Trans Am. I would park the Trans Am. I would get out and I would staple gun the posters I would do this for hours at night. And so when people come to me, because everybody wants to, of course, tap social media and how they can make money from it. And then people love to give me flack about how much time it takes. And I'm like, bitch, you were driving around in the middle of the night with tape and nails, risking your life in your chucks, like trying to like find intersections, not get arrested. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
plus it's like when strangers stop you on the street and you're putting up a poster and then they read it and then it says anal sex on it. Okay. That alone is like, do I want to have this conversation? I mean, I think there's specific challenges with sex and other taboo topics. Yeah. Because immediately, like, this is not something we're supposed to be talking about in public.
Yeah.
We've certainly seen over and over on social media, platforms are kicking off sex educators, sex workers, people who talk about sex who are like therapists.
Yeah.
Who don't have pictures, who don't have images on their Instagram, but they're talking about sex and it keeps coming up in the algorithm. And so they get kicked off the platform. So it's like, there's always been challenges. The challenges are different as technology has gone on,
right?
But there's never an easy way to just say, let me take out an ad in the New York Times about this, right? It's never going to happen.
Right. So I feel like for you, and just not knowing the full story, but your newsletter, your list of people that you contact is probably, do you feel like it's one of the strongest things that you have? Because no one can fuck with it, right? So social media, you've got all these dances you have to do to keep it all okay, right? And then in person, but now that's not possible, right? And that's very slow. That's very kind of one at a time. And then maybe if you have something to promote, maybe you get a little bit of a large audience. But your newsletter for you sounds like it is one of the most powerful tools that you have.
Yeah. And also my podcast, you know, it reminds me a little bit. I wrote for the Village Voice for 10 years.
Amazing.
And my reach literally just overflowed. You know, it's like I was reaching a certain amount of people I knew, whatever. When I started writing for the Village Voice, complete strangers would come up to me at cocktail parties and be like, I read you. I'm a fan of yours. I mean, I just had Gene Demby on my podcast, who is one of the hosts and creators of Code Switch on NPR.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And he was like, I used to read you in the Village Voice in like the 2000s. And I was like, oh my God, but I'm a fan of you. So that really upped my reach. And I feel like now my podcast is the way to reach like a lot of people all at once and to kind of like keep them in the loop and be in their ears like once a week. Because I also feel like there is this thing about repetition. Yeah. There's a thing about like people have to hear about you over and over because their attention spans are so short and we have just like so much, we're bombarded with media. So you kind of like have to keep telling people, this is me, this is me, this is me.
Yeah. And I also feel like you can control those. Like people can't take that away from you in the way that social media and what you do is very challenging. I have other friends that are an adult and they are constantly either kicked off either payment platforms as well. They can't get paid through certain platforms. Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, I mean, it is very challenging. So you have to be really conscious of controlling what it is so it can't be taken away from you. I love also hearing too about the consistency. And I can't stress that enough to people that like slow and steady wins the race, right? Yeah. So it's totally like just keep putting it out there consistently, keep hitting that nail on the head. And then also what you're talking about is healthy collaborations, right? So the Village Voice featured you. They had a large audience and they were just totally like, we would like to put you here. And this is the same way that we do this now, which is we borrow each other's audiences, right? I'm on your podcast. You come on my podcast. I want to be on that person's podcast. I want to get in that person's feed. I want to be on that person's show. That's how we do all of this stuff together. But it all has to work together in a pie. If you're only doing one part of it, it can be very difficult to push that rock up the hill. So
I'm really conscious too with my podcast in really curating a guest list that doesn't repeat. There are so many sex podcasts and my podcast, especially, it's not like how to give a great blowjob or call in. It's really like, having conversations for an hour with people I find really interesting. And often they've written books because I'm like a book nerd, but it's really been important for me to not have like the same 10 guests that all the other sex pods just had. So I have to sort of stay in my community with the people who are most relevant to sex positivity. But then I also have to get out of that. I have to get out of that box and say, these people are working adjacent to my industry. Yes. They're doing work that's similar, or they've just done a project that I can really sink my teeth into. Yeah. And is about gender and sexuality and in the broadest terms, And so also like reaching out to the people who are right around you and love your stuff and love the topic, and then looking for other people, right? Who have a different set of expertise, who haven't done the sort of talk show rounds of all the sex podcasts. Right. And again, when they promote your show, they're promoting it to their audience, right? And that's a different audience from mine, my built-in audience. Yeah. So I think it's also really important to just sort of like spread your wings. I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really important to make sure that you're bringing value is what you want to do. Yeah. And people, and it's like when you're thinking about that, it's like, oh, what would I like in that? And I think that so much when I'm working with clients, I have to get them away because everyone is so hyper-focused on themselves when it comes to self-promotion. Right. And when they're new at something, the feelings are all over the place. They feel uncertain. They're not sure. They want to appeal to everybody. It's like they're afraid of doing, there's just so much fear there. And I sit with clients all the time who are literally crying. I mean, they're either afraid of revealing a part of themselves or that this is their true dream about what they want to do. It feels like they're exposing their most personal bits or they're killing their babies. They're just so afraid of what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Yes. And so I feel like what's hard is that it always starts very navel gazing, a lot of navel gazing at first. And I'm like, you got to look up and out and think about how your audience is interacting with this. Now, what's very hard for me sometimes is that I would never do, I think, sometimes what my audience does. Like I am also, I'm a person that also performs all the time and I work all the time. So I don't know if I'm cruising Eventbrite looking for events. You know what I mean? I am constantly in front of a camera, putting on hair and makeup. Like I just want to shut the fuck up and lay in my bed and watch, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. But I do know that people do that. They look, and I can see how they buy tickets on the back end of my Eventbrite. I can see how those analytics, how those insights work. And they tell me, which is always so important, check your insights. Where did these clicks come from? Look on the back end of your website. If you have a website that doesn't give you analytics, please get a plugin, get something to tell you where this shit is coming from. Right. Because you'll also see too what's popular stuff on your site. Oh, everybody wants to hear about this. It's like, okay, well, did I beat that into the fucking ground? Do I need to move on to something else? Or do I go, no, I think I should consider that, right? So, and making intelligent, smart decisions, informed decisions about this stuff. But
I used to have a more sexy, not safe for work site called puckerup.com. It still lives, as a historical piece.
I love it.
But I would check, what are people searching on Google to get to me? And because first you want to know that some people are just typing in puckerup.com, that recognition is out there, that those fucking pens I made worked, right?
The promotional pens you ordered through Vistaprint.
Do not skimp on the pens. Because there's nothing worse than I get a free pen from someone and it's a shitty pen. I will never use it. But if you give me a really good pen, I will use it and I will look at your branding over and over and over again. Don't skimp on the pens.
Good tip.
Not the cheapest, okay?
Yeah.
Really important. So people were searching for anal fisting.
Woo.
They were searching for enema play.
Woo. Okay.
So it's like these fantastic pieces of information, because I used to have a column called The Anal Advisor. I just gave information about anal sex.
Amazing.
And so like my content and my questions and answers, like that's what was driving a lot of traffic. And it was really interesting to sort of see that, like you said, there is data out there.
Yes.
And even if you're not a geek, you could also get someone to do this for you. Yeah. You kind of have to pay attention to what are the posts on Instagram getting. There's engagement up the wazoo. There's there's reposting, there's all this stuff. And then what are the ones that kind of like fall flat? When I post late at night, that's a different kind of engagement than when I post at noon, because between noon and 2 is like my highest engagement.
Yeah.
And you've got to kind of pay attention to that.
I love that. I love that you were like, how can I meet this by looking at the analytics on Google? Like, what is everyone looking for? Let them ask you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, and some people, when they have a nice enough audience, they can ask their audience, hey, what do you guys want to know about? And then everybody's like this and that. And it can really, really surprise you. When I was putting together my company, I worked with a business coach. And in the way that she talked about the way that you should talk about yourself and your brand, your business, your whatever, is I had to figure out what everyone always said to me when they came to me. And the number one thing they always say is, I feel gross doing this. I don't want to feel like a douchebag. I don't want to, and it is literally, I don't want to feel like I'm braggy. I hear those 3 sentences 100% of the time when I'm working with clients. So I use those same words when I'm promoting. Hey guys, do you not want to feel gross? Even at the top of this podcast, I said how to promote yourself without feeling gross, right? And people come up to me after workshops and they're like, I was sold when you said I didn't have to feel gross. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yes, you don't have to feel gross, which is why I have these conversations, because I feel like there is so much baggage around being self-promoting. I mean, even I'm like, the way my body language is like, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like,
please don't look at me. Look at me. Look at me.
I know, but it's like, if you're not doing it, what is going on, right? And then I've got to claw through, because this isn't just about the analytics, right? Because the analytics can be very helpful. But if you don't have whatever is going on inside of you to match that, like whether it's the confidence or the as if, I'm acting as if right now, if I don't have the confidence, but maybe if I just kind of act like the confidence will come, or whatever it is for you to help you get this stuff done. So
I mean, I do business coaching for sexuality professionals.
Oh,
and
cool.
I feel a couple things. One is that I tell people all the time, if you've made a thing, if you do a thing, if you teach a thing, it behooves you to tell people about it. Like, there are people out there who need and want your voice.
Yes.
But the only way they're going to find out about it is if you tell them over and over and over again in a lot of different places, so that it sort of has enough reach that it gets to folks.
Yes.
And then you have to believe your own hype. I feel like people, especially people who were socialized as women and girls, have been told, don't speak up for yourself, don't promote yourself, you are bragging, right? When men talk about their accomplishments, they are like distinguished and confident. And when women talk about their accomplishments, they are bragging,
showing off,
stuck up.
Oh yeah.
Right? all that stuff. And so I think we also have to like deprogram some of that out of our brains and say, no, this is just about making people aware of me and my brand and my business. And the people, your people will find you.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to be everything to everyone. Not at all. In fact, you know, when I first wrote this book, you know, people had a lot of caution for me. But one of the things was they said, if you write this book and it's your very first book, you're going to be known for the rest of your life as the author of the book about anal sex. Guess what? That's true. And whenever anyone even thinks of anal sex in the media, online, in their personal life, when they're browsing on Amazon, guess what? They got to come to me. Right? So it really kind of worked out in my favor. I don't think it like put a tarnish on my
I can't speak to that enough. I'm always telling people like find your corner in the way that you do it, and that's totally fine. And no, you can't appeal to everybody. And I also just want to say too, like in what you were saying about, you know, being a woman or whatever, and also too, if you have trauma as a part of trying to heal in your life or just survive the first 15, I don't know, whatever years of your life, and you had to fucking be quiet because somebody else in your life was too big, too loud, too scary, being seen can be very challenging. I mean, I deal a lot with trying to unhook people's trauma and their original survival mechanism of trying to be not seen and heard because it disturbed the scary thing in their life, whatever that is, right? And so, and what's hard about that is those people also have the best stories, the best help, the best fucking tools because they had that trauma. So you've got these two things that are fucking working against each other. And I'm like, I know you're scared. Like you've got to fucking come with me on this so that we can help get this out there. And then what happens is they get over that first hurdle and they start to feel the love and the validation. They start to see the money coming in. They start to see that they've made some changes in people. And I'm always kind of like, you've got to get over that first hump because the unknown is scary. Of course it is. And when I'm also talking to people about their fears online and they tell me something scary that they're scared of, and I'm like, has it ever happened? Like, for real? And a few times, actually, yes. People have been stalked or scary things have happened or taken to court or whatever. But I'm totally like, okay, let's hold the space for that about what that happened. But are you going to shut it all down? That is a choice. You can do that. You can shut it all down and make that one person happy or that thing in your mind happy. Or how do we move on? How do we do this in a safe way? How do we protect you so that you feel good about this? So this is way more than just, you know, sharing on social media or when the best time to do it. It is very, very deep sometimes for people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I want to also validate that the internet is scary.
Yes.
That increasingly people feel entitled to say the meanest, the cruelest shit. They would never say it to your face, or if they are, that they're psychopaths.
Yeah.
But people act differently online, and some people have too much time on their hands.
Yes.
And people can say the meanest things. So there's part of you that has to have a thick skin and has to know that like the 9 people who commented who were like super psyched about what you said or your meme or right. You got to listen to them. You got to listen to their voices louder than the one person who was like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Right.
And you must be, I'm just assuming, but that like in talking about sex, in talking about these taboo things, it must attract some, you know what I mean? Like people sliding into your DMs with, their 2 cents or thinking somehow that that's what only you're available for, like all kinds of fucking things. So I can imagine that you've definitely been slaying some dragons out there,
Well, this just recently happened. It's really funny because a lot of people slide into my DMs. A lot of people have bad boundaries. A lot of people are inappropriate. And so this person wrote to me who I don't know and said, hey, I don't mean to be out of line or anything, but I just have to tell you, you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And I felt like it was my duty to let you know. And so I reposted that and said, hey, if you want to slide into my DMs, here is the fucking template. Here's the template to get my attention, right? And then, so I said, listen, I really appreciate you. Thank you very much. And then his next DM to me was, do you do porn? That's my dog.
That's okay. Perfectly accented. Perfectly accented.
I mean, guys, it's like, oh, you lifted me up and then you disappointed me, right? And also, like, I have done porn, but that's beside the point. Like, you're giving me a come on here that is not going to work. Right?
Yeah.
So you gotta take that shit with the good stuff and reread the good stuff and let that other stuff go.
Yes. And I can't, like, it is like that with anything. And I think that the reason why we do that is because we're still hardwired to be cavemen. You know what I mean? Where we're looking for danger. Where's the danger? Where's the problem? You know what I mean? Is that a tiger? What is that? Is that a poison leaf? Do I not like, what is that? You know, so I think we're trying to clock the situation for the danger. So like even when I'm performing comedy and I see that one person at the side of my eye who is just not fucking laughing, you know what I mean? I got 99 other people who are fucking like, oh, and then I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I don't know why that is. I don't know why. And then I literally have clients, some of them with hundreds of thousands of followers. One person will say some fucked up dumbass thing that's just not even who cares? And for some reason we're on a 10-minute call about it, you know, and I'm like, but there were the other 855,000 people who fucking bought tickets and liked it and hearted it and shared it and whatever, but we got to address what this one dumb fuck said about the website, which is literally just their style opinion. It's not even like a thing that you like, so it can derail us, right? So
yes.
How do we
that's real. That's really real.
How do we stay right-sized inside of it and be like, is this worth my time and energy? Or do I just redirect my eyes to the thing that's actually going to be helpful?
Right. I think people have constructive criticism. And I think it's fair when someone has taken a thoughtful approach and when approaches you and says, I'm a huge fan of yours. That's always a good start. But I listened to this one podcast recently and you said a thing and that didn't ring true for me or that offended me. There's the way people approach you, I think, is important. And certainly you want feedback, right? You want feedback that's meaningful to you. Now, if the feedback I get is like, you have too many people of color on your show, disregard, right? Filter it out. That's my agenda. I stand by that agenda. I'm not for you. There's plenty of white shows.
MoveOn.org.
But if they have constructive criticism, I think it's meaningful to sort of engage in them, set boundaries. I'm not going to have an 18 comment thread with you about this. Thanks for your input. But happiness and satisfaction is like a practice. And it's about filtering out those bad experiences, right? It's about saying, listen to what people have told you before. Go back to those letters. I've printed out, old school, I've printed out every fan letter I've ever gotten and I keep them in a binder. And I'm convinced when I get into my deepest depression, and I've been in very deep depressions, but you know, you can always go deeper. It can always be darker. That like someone will bring me the binder on my, to my bed and say, listen, you've made a difference in people's lives. Here's the proof, read it.
Yeah.
Also, I have friends who, when I'm having like a blah day, when a friend texts and says like, how can I support you? I have been very specific and clear about asking for praise. And then they sort of flood my text with all the things that I've done in the world to remind me, all the people whose lives I've affected, what they think of me. And it really works. Even though I asked for it, it didn't come sort of spontaneously, which is, a dumb idea. I asked for it and they gave it to me and it made me feel better.
I think that is like so great. Like, it's just totally like, how can we just have, like, I just need some loving right now. Like,
Yeah.
I need some, and I feel like also too, one of the things that I find that artists have, and also to creative business owners, is that they don't want to ask for anything. In the same way that it's like in what you were saying before too about, oh God, how are you saying it? It's like essentially like, it's like jumping in and out of my mind, but essentially that like you were saying to somebody, like, you have this great thing, you have to tell people about it. Everybody wants somebody else to do it. They want somebody else to do it. And that was the old model. You did your rock and roll, you did your movie, you're a starlet, you wrote your book, whatever. You hired a publicist and they told everybody how you were the fucking bee's knees and it was amazing and they took care of it and you didn't have to fucking do shit. That model doesn't work anymore. Even if you have a publicist, you still have to do it on your own fucking social media. And I feel like this idea that somebody else is going to do this work for you, whether it be the heavy lifting of promoting yourself or even sometimes you need that help hearing it from the outside in, it's like you still have to ask. And I feel like if you have issues around that, and getting that and asking and advocating for yourself, that is where it all starts. Like, that is the fucking baseline for that, because everybody just wants somebody else to discover it and take care of it.
I think this is also a tool though. I know people who like can't possibly write about themselves, right? And so they ask people, when you come to my shows, like, what are 5 adjectives you'd use to describe me and my comedy, right? And so then you get this feedback from real people and it's harder to discount because other people said it. And we always give weight to what other people think and not ourselves, which is like a bad idea.
Oh my God, yes.
But if other people say it, then you're like, oh, I guess I could say this about myself, right? I guess I can. And also, I know people who have ghost-like publicists where basically there's an email address, which is Ingrid at Taormino.com. And Ingrid fields calls. Ingrid pitches me places where she says the most outrageous, wonderful things about me. It's Ingrid after all. You know, she can sometimes even go a little over the top. And so because Ingrid is promoting me, she can sing my praises. And then once someone says, this sounds really good, can you put me in touch with Tristan? Then I talk, right? And so I don't have this right now, but I have had it in my life. And then I've had like real, actual virtual assistants to talk about me. But you can have a virtual assistant that you've sort of made up who becomes like an in-between.
I love
like
it.
A buffer. And then they can say the things that you're afraid to say about yourself. Because that's the third person.
This is, listen to the gems, people. Listen to the gems. I mean, yes. When I think about the fact that like, and this is why people come to me too, is that I can be like, you're this, you're that, go man, go, 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 you know, right? Of course I do this for myself and I'm like, Melanie, you know what I mean? So yes, I mean, how fucking powerful is that? Like just an and you're not lying. You're just making that initial outreach connection. You know what I mean? But the freedom.
Also, I've never questioned, like when someone emails me, like I've never thought, is this not a real person? Like I've never thought that. I've been like, oh, okay, so this person pitches this other person's podcast to be on my podcast. Right. I've never said like, do you think this is fake? I don't even have the time for that. I will interact with you, whoever you are.
Oh my God. That is so amazing. So you guys, this has been such a great conversation with Tristan so far. You can get her at tristantaormino.com for all of her website needs. And definitely listen to her Sex Out Loud podcast. It is wonderful. I had a fantastic time chatting with her over there. So follow, favorite, and fawn over her on all of her social media platforms. And we're going to go chat right now over on my Patreon. And you can hear that full conversation over at patreon.com. Patreon.com/Melanie Vesey. If you want to know more about me, my comedy, see my films, watch my specials, melanievesey.com. And if you want to know more about my services, promotionalrescue.com. I can help you learn how to promote yourself without feeling gross. So we're going to go over to my Patreon right now, and we'll see you guys in a little bit. Bye.